Hi, I'm Douglas. I work at Catalyst IT. I only ever wear this when I come here. They tell me I should wear it when I come here. So we're a New Zealand company with a few branches around the world, a couple of hundred people, maybe 300. But only 3 of us are Samba developers. And we've had a Samba team for 14 years, I think, and I've been on it for 11 years, so I'm quite new in the Samba team, in the Samba business. And we work on almost exclusively on Samba, on the AD side and development. We don't really do fiddly little support stuff. And so when I was trying to work out what to propose for a talk, I thought I'll just talk about what we've been doing in the last year. And this work has been paid for by Tranquil, who you just heard talking in the other room. They're one of our good clients. Maybe our best client, actually. But we do have other ones, and if anyone else wants to be one, that's fine. But this isn't about security fixes, which is another thing that we've been spending a lot of time doing, because security fixes are security advancements, but they work differently. And I'm doing another talk about that tomorrow. Okay, so I'll start off with the easy one. These things are complicated, some of them, so this one's simple. In 4.24, the main encryption types have changed. So they used to have some kind of, it used to be RC4, some kind of rubbish thing, and now it's only AES, and this is just following what Microsoft have done. They haven't actually said what the new problem is, but they've decided that RC4 has suddenly jumped from being just quite rubbish to being dangerously rubbish. So they issued a CVE about it. And so now if you have a domain functional level above 2008, you won't be able to use RC4 unless you put a different default in this. You can tell it to use RC4 if you want, but don't. Right? There's, I don't know if maybe people have reasons to. I don't know. Okay, PKINIT. There's this thing called Windows Hello for Business, which is kind of like a smart card kind of thing, except that your laptop becomes a smart card, not the card, basically. But they've got 2 modes. We did them both. One of them is key trust, and the other one is certificate trust. And key trust is a simple one for me to think about, because it's like SSH. You have your public key, you give away your private key, and it lets you log in. And certificate trust is like, there's a tree of certificates signing each other, all that kind of stuff like TLS. So with the key trust model, on your laptop you have your private key, like an SSH, and then you give away you put your public key on the. Now, an SSH, you put it on the machine you want to log into, and this thing, key trust, you put it on the AD object that you want to log in as, that you want to authenticate as. And that's all there is. There is no kind of like, nothing is signed, nothing, it's just like, if you can write to that attribute, you can put it there, and you're fine. And rather than an SSH, you log into the machine. In this one, you get a Kerberos ticket. And with certificate trust, it's like a smart card with all the TLS like certificate signing. Now I didn't work on this part of it, so I don't know much about it. I worked on the key trust side, but Jennifer, my colleague, worked on these things. I didn't really understand what was going on, so I'm going to try and explain it, but I will make it up. So you have a signing authority. Oh look, I've got pictures. I'll get back to this one. I'll go on to how the key trust flow works. This is how you provision it on Windows. You have, I can't go too far from this. Can anyone read it? The little words? Your client, your domain controller, some other things that Samba doesn't have. So your client talks to the ADFS server, which talks to an MFA server, which in fact is talking to Azure or something, because it needs to know who you are. It needs to know about you anyway to do MFA, because otherwise it can't do it. And then it talks back to AFS, and it sends, I guess it's an authentication. And then it does, then you kind of create your key, and then it goes across to ADFS, and eventually it writes the public key into the domain controller, and then it does some other stuff, just saying it worked. So there's a whole lot of traffic going around, but the main thing is, the one thing that happens to Active Directory is the public key gets written in the right place by somebody. So, to simplify it, there's the client, there's the DC, and there's other things that we don't do. And so, the key trust... So, yeah, probably, I don't know, maybe you script it. Yeah, your client has a key pair. Maybe the admin makes it happen, and then they copy that public key and they put it into the right thing. And there's a Samba tool command that will do that. So Samba tool user key trust add, you name your user and you name the file that has the public key in it. And there's a few different formats you can use. And it'll just pull out the public key, bundle it up in the right strange way that it needs to be, and it'll put it in the right place in the DC for that user. Do you use this one? You use the other one, don't you? That you use the certificate trust. Yeah. So this is the one that would. It's easy to think about because you only have to think about if you've got this public key, you can log in as that. There was also a thing we added, which I forgot to make a slide about, is that that makes the attribute that you're running these to, key credential link, it's called, MSDS key credential link, that makes it, it's not a secret attribute, but it's a very important It's a security significant attribute. So you have to, so we audit now as a password change if someone, no, in the log that you have aimed your password audit change things, logging things to, it will also log a change to the key credential link attributes. This is like if you're adding SSH public key to your authorized hosts thing. It's saying, is it authorized? Yeah. It's saying that you can log in as that person. So, and there's a few other things that we thought it through, and we put in the list of things that we'll get. Alt security identities is one, which I'll try and mention in the next bit. So the certificate provision flow, it does all of the stuff. It does all of this stuff. So it writes the thing into key credential link, which I'm actually not quite sure why it does that, but then it kind of talks to all this other stuff. Then at the other end there's the certificate authority. But you can't actually get there from Samba without ADFS and all that stuff. So the way, these slides are from Obeyed from 2019, as you can see, which I forgot to say. This is how it works in Samba. But no, it doesn't work in Samba. This is kind of how I visualize it in my mind, is you talk to, Tranquil have got a certificate server, and somehow you talk to it, and somehow it works, and you get the right thing back in your, you get your certificate, and you're good to go. So, this isn't a deeply technical talk about this part, because there are a whole lot of details that you need to still be highly skilled and know what you're doing, and that's when it comes to actually being a Samba admin. That's not me. And I didn't even write the software for this. I just know that Jennifer did it, so it'll be better than if I did it. So anyway, you can do it, and these guys at Tranquil, they are doing it. They're using the certificates, the stuff to log into their domains. They got talk to them about it. But then there was, so you might remember a few years ago there was a cluster of security issues called Andrew's Kerberos concerns, and a lot of us in the Samba team spent a lot of time fixing it, and it was all about things like, it was about the difference between what Kerberos, about canonicalizing names in Kerberos, or matching names. So the main thing is like a username without a dollar on the end. Kerberos, AD Kerberos would add the dollar on the end of it in its own mind if it couldn't find the one without the dollar. So if you could make a machine account, say called root dollar, and then on your local, on a Unix machine, you could say you want to log in as root, and Kerberos, would go off to Kerberos and say, they want to log in as root, and Kerberos would say, oh, there's no user root, oh, but there's a machine called root $, and it would say, okay, that matches, and then it would send back a ticket for root. And then on your machine that was a domain member machine, if it was trusting Active Directory, which is what you're doing if you're a domain member, it would say, well, they've got a certificate for root, and so they can do anything on that domain member. And that's the kind of, Andrew called it the dollar ticket attack. Anyway, turns out you could do the same thing with certificates, exactly the same. And he tried to actually tell Microsoft that, but they didn't really listen. But then a couple of years later, someone else pointed out the same thing, and that became another issue. And then they came up, with now none of this really mattered to Samba because no one could use PKINIT with Samba because it was just too complicated and the stuff wasn't working. No, so we didn't worry about certificates. So we didn't worry about that. But then there was this thing where you had, there was lots of different ways to confuse Kerberos about your username. You could also do things where the SAM account name would sometimes be put on with an @ onto the domain, and that would be confused with the user principal name, which looks like the same. Often they're the same, but so they have this idea of mappings between certificates and users, and some mappings are weak mappings, and some mappings are strong mappings, and they, over the last year or two, have been turning up the knob saying you can only use strong mappings. And there's this attribute which goes on the user or whatever object called alt security identities, which is another one. If you change it, it's a security issue. So it gets logged in that passwords log. And the strong mappings are things that you can't spoof and that don't repeat. So the certificate issuer, the certificate has a whole lot of stuff in it. One of them is the issuer, which I guess is like a serial number for your certificate server. And then there's a serial number of the certificate that it's giving out. And those two things, in theory, shouldn't change. So if you so you can map that from the user to that certificate and just say that that certificate goes with that user. There's also subject key identifier and the hash of the key, of the public key. And then there's this other one, which is the best one, but we haven't actually done it properly. We haven't done it fully. Is you can put the SID. I'll talk about this last one later because I've actually got a slide about it. You can put the. I'll finish my sentence also first. You can put the SID of your user that the certificate is for, or the user or the computer, into the certificate. So it's just saying the certificate knows who's allowed to use it. And now we just turn this on by default, the strong mappings. So if you use, because it's not going to hurt anyone turning it on by default, because nobody has been using certificates until now. Well, if they have been, we're going to hear about it. Well, we probably won't. You can turn it off just setting this thing to none, or the other thing that is probably just about as good is to set it to compatibility, which means so if the user is older than the certificate, which is the usual case because you create your user and then you make your certificate, then you don't worry about the mapping. But if you make the user sooner than the certificate, after the certificate, that is usually a sign that you're making a user with a tricky name. Well, if you are making a user with a tricky name to like root dollar to match root or something like that, it will fail with this compatibility setting. And there's not many cases where you'd make your certificate before you have the user. Well, maybe there is. I don't know how people do things, but the SID extension, it looks like this. This is the thing we added. We added the SID extension, but we didn't add the rule in the mapping that would use the SID extension, because the SID extension got added after the strong mappings was implemented, and we read the document about strong mappings and did what it said there, and then later on they added the SID extension, and then later on they added the update to the, a whole nother document saying, now you do this with your SID extension and make it a strong mapping. And sorry, we missed that combination. But anyway, it's just a certificate with all the crap that's in a certificate, and you just put another one in that says object SID is this SID, and that just kind of makes it so you can't use it in AD without mapping that SID. This is just mentioning the key credential link as the name. It's a new attribute for certificate for the key trust links. Don't know why I put that in the wrong order. Anyway. How fast am I?
You're good. You still have 20 minutes left?
20 minutes, yeah. I feel like I'm going fast and also forgetting things. So I'll try not to do either of those. Now the KDC, if you don't ask for, the client can ask for a canonicalized name. So this thing that I was talking about before, the dollar ticket attack, well, there it is. There it is. If you don't ask for canonicalized C name in when you're asking for your TGT, it has to give you back the name that you asked for. That's in the original with the Kerb 5 protocol. I think that the Kerberos people have said that was a mistake, but I think the idea was there might be some man in the middle kind of things that you could do if you could, on the way in, you could change the username or something. I don't know why, but they made it.
C name is not protected by any checksum. So
Right.
you can technically change it in the process. And Active Directory specifications actually state that the clients must always ask for canonicalization because of this. But if the KDC returns canonicalized name and the client did not, I don't think it's working. Or does it?
So I can just.
It does. No, just maybe. Can we get this? Can we get It's working?
That's
Yes.
working, yeah.
So, in the original Kerberos protocol, the client name in the packet is not really protected. And if KDC says, I want to rewrite this to a different one, the client will not accept.
Yeah.
Because the name is different to what was sent. So the solution to that was, hey, let's take an additional flag and say, client should say, I accept names that are canonicalized. And then in Active Directory, the specification says that all clients must set this flag. But this is hardly done, and they kind of deal with this in some ways. In Windows, all clients automatically set canonicalization. I don't think they have a mechanism to disable that, so they always send in canonicalization. But on the Linux side, both Heimdall and MIT have this configurable, and by default, it's not set to canonicalize. So you have to set this yourself in the configurations. And the fear is that if we start enforcing canonicalization, so basically saying we don't serve clients who don't send this bit, it's not the KDC side that enforces it, it's the client has to enforce. And if we say that the KDC never accepts the requests from the clients that do not set this bit, you obviously will be breaking those clients. So in reality, that doesn't matter for Samba AD and for SSSD-based environments and for WinBind-based environments, because both SSSD and WinBind-based environments add configuration snippet that says canonicalize these requests for all clients. So on the KDC side, we now can enforce this by rejecting requests that are not canonicalized. Yeah.
Thank you, Alexander. So this is for the dollar ticket attack stuff. Windows clients use the canonicalization thing, and Unix clients, well, I don't know about the WinBind SSD doing stuff, but sometimes you might get a client that doesn't set it. So, but if you put this option in your smb.conf, if you don't ask for canonicalization, if the client doesn't, or somebody along the line doesn't do it for you, then it'll just say, never heard of that. The reason it returns an unknown principal is just, there's no better option really. And it was a simple thing. If you just say you failed in that function, if you return failure, it says unknown principal. So that's what it does. But now that might cause trouble for some people if we set that on by default. So I didn't set it by default. And I also made another option where if you ask for canonicalization, it works like normal. If you don't ask for canonicalization, it will just refuse to do that thing where the name with the dollar on the end and the name without the dollar on the end can be confused. It just doesn't go through again and look for the name with the dollar, which is just an extra step that happens in the Samba KDC. So you can, like either of these options, you should probably just set. If in doubt, if you're worried, set the second one, which, like if you think you might have clients, okay, if you think you might have clients who aren't using canonicalization, probably set the first one, and then you'll find out who they are. But then maybe you actually want to set the second one, and then they can still carry on in their old-fashioned ways with out canonicalization, but they can't do the sneaky tricks. Or no one else can, because it's not those clients you're worrying about, it's really, the attacker can construct their requests as they like. So you probably never want the default behavior, but I've left it as default because I was scared of breaking things. And I want you to opt into breaking things if you're going to break things. Now, so if you don't have canonicalization and you don't trust the name, which once you've read the last slide, you've probably set everything up, so you don't need to worry about this one. But when you are asking the Kerberos server for a service ticket from your TGT, it uses the name in the pack, not the C name, because the C name is not entirely trustworthy. So you can turn this off, but I don't think you probably want to. And so it's just going to be a little bit better. Of course, to get the name from the pack, you need the pack. The pack is like a signed, kind of nicely wrapped up blob of whatever garbage people put in the pack. It's kind of like a key value store of a can.
But this is actually something that we should probably always set to yes and reject the no settings, because since 2 years ago, pack is mandatory because it contains all the checksums. I mean, the structures where the logon info is one of the buffers. We typically call pack the logon info part, but in fact there are like 6 or 7 different buffers in it, and at least 3 of them, the checksums, the KDC checksum, the server checksum, and the requester seed buffer, they became mandatory in the Active Directory environment, so you cannot not have them. And that means that any clients that doesn't understand those are bound not to be compatible with Active Directory at all, and they have to be just dropped. So if the client doesn't understand the logon info buffer, that's fine, but dropping generation of the pack buffers wholesale is not possible.
Yeah. So default is that you always get the pack. You can turn it off with this thing, but probably, as you're saying, those people it's not working anyway.
I mean, even with the MIT Kerberos, what it is, 121? 119 even. MIT Kerberos 119 always generates pack buffers for checksums and the seed requester and so on, but it doesn't provide a logon info buffer. And
right.
So we already have this for like since 2022, 2023, that even raw MIT Kerberos, so the one that doesn't represent Active Directory or IPA or something, always generates those buffers. So the clients need to read that, because if they don't have those checksums, they can be spoofed much easier than any of these things, and they are not worthy of protection.
Okay. Yeah. It reminds me of a thing I think this one is only about the internal Heimdall server. The other things before this are for all MIT and home deal, like the canonicalization options and
So
others.
my opinion is that many of these things, they were done in presumption that there are clients that outdated, but the reality is that those outdated clients most likely do not exist, or they are so outdated that they wouldn't work as a normal Active Directory setup in a normally protected Microsoft Active Directory environment today, and therefore they are not worthy of carrying with this craft. It's creating more problems than solving.
Having the options to turn them off.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, having 600 something options in smb.conf.
602 is not much worse.
I built them, so I know.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Somebody else wants to take the mic?
No, you're doing my talk for me. So, yeah. Right, so don't set that. But it's there. We could possibly have made it say, rather than say no as being the option, saying not the local whatever things, but I'm not doing that now.
One more kind of note, if you come back to that, we're really in all our communication, either developer or documentation or for the users, we need to split this notion that the pack is about having very many group membership thing. That's really logon info, not the pack. The pack is a very important structure. Logon info is just one of the buffers. It's okay not to have logon info if you don't really care about strong mappings and the other things, but pack as a kind of container for ticket infrastructure protection, which has all these checksums that you cannot otherwise protect, is very important to have there. And because the people have this black-white view on the problem, you have large tickets, disable pack. Well, if you disable pack, then it's trivial to take over your whole deployment. It's easy as that. So pack must be there with all the checksums and the things there. And if you want to have even stronger protection, then logon info information has to be there, has to be properly analyzed by the any application that consumes Kerberos ticket. And this is where we get to a bigger problem, that we cannot rewrite all those applications. We need to work at the platform level and to provide the platform level protection. Stuff like plugins to the Kerberos libraries that talk to WinBind or talk to SSSD and cross-verify seeds and all the other information in the logon buffer to see if they were spoofed and the KDC was confused when issuing the tickets with that information. Because even if you trust that, when you're issuing a ticket with the client name from the pack, that client name from the pack might be a result of identity confusion in the LDAP itself. And we've seen cases like that. Luckily, Microsoft finally got the uniqueness constraints implemented on the attributes, like the UPN attributes and the SAM account name. They were not set in at the time when the dollar attack happened. And that was one of the reasons why you can do them. You can even do them against AD directly, unless you have the uniqueness constraints defined.
Yeah, in fact, I think you can still get
It's a question to you, Alexander.
Huh.
Or maybe to the...
Okay, come up here.
I don't know who knows the answer, but you're talking about having user info as being the possible cause of troubles because it can get too big. Now, is that separately switchable in SMB conf so that you can say no user? So you can switch the pack, but you can't switch this individual structure.
No. But that
So it's
would be
not
better
it's
here,
not
right?
switchable on the
Yeah.
Samba AD side.
Yeah.
It's kind of switchable on the Active Directory, Microsoft Active Directory implementation. You can tell that you don't want pack issued, but I think it's the kind of result of old option where non-Windows clients were not supporting pack at all. And I don't think it plays well with the concept that there must always be checksums now. So it's probably a broken thing in the Active Directory, in the Microsoft implementation of the Active Directory. It's awkward to say that we now have like Active Directory, which is not Active Directory, which is Samba Active Directory. Then the other part is we are getting to the point where post-quantum certificates will and algorithms will get eventually propagated to Active Directory thing. And that means that the whole idea about ticket being too big will be moot. Because with the MLDSA certificates, your PKINIT stuff will already be so large that the typical argument will not fit. I mean, you have MLDSA 65 as how many? 5 kilobyte public key. For MLDSA 87, it's 10, 11K. So the pack is basically dwarfing that for most cases. And you will have to deal this not only for the Kerberos, you will have to deal that for a general TLS case already. So we are getting to a situation where everything will be refactored anyway. So pack stuff is not a problem anymore. Not a problem for the kernel user space communication for a decade already with JSS proxy and the channels that they have. It's just a very old knowledge that being recirculated, that somehow this is bad.
You reminded me about the key credential link attribute that stores your public key for your key trust thing. It has to be, in the standard, it just has to be RSA 2048. Can't be anything else. So that's another thing that's going to blow up among the many if that quantum stuff ever catches on. How are we doing? Time's over. All right, good.
I'm just going to make one comment for the audience to tell you that because of Catalyst's work now, we are fully passwordless at Tranquility, and we are pushing our customers to be passwordless too with Samba.